Have you ever poured out your heart to God, asking for something that's good, only to be met with silence? Or perhaps you've found yourself seeking the gifts of God rather than the giver himself. If we're honest, how often is prayer an attempt to bend the will of God to ours as though we know better than the one who made us? But what if prayer is not about us getting what we want? What if it's God's way of drawing us to the only treasure that's worth having, namely himself? Could it be that his delays, his silence, his no's are actually an invitation to discover that he alone suffices? Jesus gives us the answer in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 6, verse 33. He says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." But here's the truth we often miss. Seeking the kingdom is not a strategy to get the things. It's an invitation to delight in the King. How often do we come to God saying, change this, give me that, fix this? And while God delights in meeting our needs, we must ask ourselves, is he not enough? The one who spoke the very stars into being, who gave his Son for us, is he not worthy of our love and adoration simply for who he is, apart from what he can give us? God's will is sovereign, perfect and unchanging. It flows from his infinite wisdom and love, and his plans are always for our ultimate goodness, even when they don't align with exactly what we desire. Yet in his wisdom, he calls us to ask, to seek, and to knock. Why? Because prayer is not about changing God's mind, it's about changing our hearts. It's where we bring our desires, our fears, our questions, and it's through persistent prayer that our will is shaped to align with his. Prayer is the meeting place where our hearts are softened and we come to trust in his goodness, even when we don't understand his plans. Jesus himself modeled this tension in the Garden of Gethsemane. He prayed, "Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." In his surrender, he shows us that prayer is not about forcing God's hand, but trusting his heart. And it was in this surrender that the greatest act of love, the cross, was made possible. If we're honest, we've all tried to manipulate God in prayer. We bargain, we plead, we fast, thinking that we can change his mind. But God's sovereignty cannot be manipulated. Such is the mercy of God, brothers and sisters. He sees what we cannot, and his purpose for prayer is not to fulfill our every request, but to lead us to the ultimate good, himself. Like a good father, he doesn't always give us what we want, because what we want isn't always what we need. Persistent prayer is not about convincing God. It's about making space in our hearts to receive what he longs to give. So what happens when the answer is silence? It feels like the door remains closed. This is where the deepest transformation occurs. God's silence is not his absence, it is his invitation. Saint Ambrose says beautifully, "Let your door be open to him when he comes. Open your heart. Meet the Son of eternal light. Christ too is shut out if you close the door of your mind. Although he is able to enter, he does not wish to rush in uninvited." Persistent prayer opens the door of your heart. It teaches us to surrender the lesser desires, to quit clinging to the gifts so that we might delight in the giver himself. Imagine a gardener tending a seed. The seed might cry out for water, for protection from the heat, but it is the gardener alone who knows exactly what the seed needs to grow. Sometimes it needs sunlight that feels harsh, or seasons of waiting in dark soil. In a similar way, God's delays and silences are not denials. There is ways of refining us, of preparing us to receive him as our ultimate treasure. Jesus tells us, ask, seek, knock. Not because God needs our persistence, but because we do. In the knocking, our desires are refined. In the seeking, our trust deepens. And in the asking, we draw closer to his heart. This is the paradox of prayer. Boldness to bring our needs before him, and humility to surrender to his will. It's to say, Lord, I trust you even when I don't understand. I surrender, not because I've given up, but because you are enough. Remember that God's sovereignty means that he doesn't change to suit our demands, and thank God for that. If he gave us everything that we wanted, we would settle for far less than he desires to give us. As Hans Urs von Balthasar wrote, God is inexorable in his goodness. He is incapable of giving us anything other than himself. This is the heart of prayer, not to get what we want, but to find our satisfaction in the one who made us. To seek the kingdom, but not as a means to an end, rather as the end itself. So today ask yourself, are you seeking the kingdom or are you seeking the things? Are you coming to God for his gifts or to behold his beauty? Is he not worthy of your love, even if he doesn't give you what you ask for? Jesus stands at the door waiting, not to grant you every wish, but to give you himself. Will you knock? Will you seek him? Will you allow your heart to be satisfied in him? Persistent prayer does not change God's will, but it changes us. It draws us closer to the one who is our true treasure. So come, ask boldly. Seek his face, knock, and the door will be opened to his presence. Because when you stop striving for the things and begin delighting in the King, you will find that he is more than enough. He is worthy, and he is the treasure that your heart has been searching for.